My father claimed it was too risky when I asked for $65,000 to launch my tech company. Then he took out a $625,000 loan for my brother Ryan's BMW and failed dreams. Now he wants me to sell my home to save them. I showed them the door. People often believe family means kindness and equal treatment, but sometimes it's also where the deepest pain comes from. I used to think my family was perfect and caring until I discovered I was simply left out. This is what happened to me, an older sibling forgotten because my parents had blind faith in my younger brother. Please stay until the end, and I'd really like to hear your thoughts. My name is Nathan. I'm 30 years old and run my own tech startup. It's not some massive corporation, but it allows me to live comfortably and own what I need. I have 2 houses, one where I live and another I rent to someone else. I'm not wealthy enough to spend without thinking, but I earn enough to not worry. Then there's Ryan, my younger brother. In our home, he's always been the center of attention. He's intelligent, smooth-talking, and knows how to make others believe in his grand plans. But he isn't practical. Ryan constantly jumps from one big dream to the next. One day it's a tech startup, then a fancy restaurant, then a movie studio. His goals sound impressive, but he never completes them. He always finds someone or something to blame, like insufficient funds or no one wanting to invest in his ideas. Then 1 year ago, I discovered something shocking. My parents had mortgaged their house to give Ryan a huge sum of money to fund another business venture. That's when everything began falling apart. My parents are the kind of people who strongly believe family should always help each other no matter what. They're not bad people, but they have one major flaw. They always believe Ryan regardless of circumstances. My father is serious and quiet. He's always the decision maker in the household. He has never truly respected what I've built, perhaps because I didn't follow the path he envisioned. To him, real success means something grand and flashy, not the small tech startup I built through my own efforts. My mother is gentler and more emotional, but she lets feelings guide her thinking. To her, Ryan is the one who still needs help. I'm the one who's already doing well and doesn't need support. She always tells me, "You're strong, you can manage on your own," but Ryan, he needs his family. We don't have abundant wealth, but we've always been comfortable. My father used to run a small business, and my mother worked as an accountant. Their jobs provided us with a stable life. Plus, my grandfather left behind a substantial amount of money from shrewd property investments. That money, if used wisely, could have supported my parents indefinitely. When I was young, I didn't think they played favorites. I thought they loved both Ryan and me equally. We had joint birthday celebrations. If I received a toy, he got something too. On holidays, we both got new clothes. Everything seemed balanced and fair. But when Ryan started school, things began to shift. Ryan performed exceptionally well. He earned top grades and was popular with everyone. Teachers praised him, and other children liked him. My parents were so pleased with him that they gradually stopped noticing I was there too. It wasn't evident in things like toys or meals, but in the more significant matters that shaped our futures. Ryan wanted to learn French. They paid for expensive classes without hesitation. He wanted to attend a prestigious camp. They agreed immediately. He wanted to play piano. They purchased one and hired a private instructor. But I never received that kind of support. By the time I reached high school, it was obvious. Ryan said he wanted to study at a top private school. They paid full tuition without consideration. I also asked to attend a better school, but my mother simply said, "Public schools are fine, son. No need to waste money." I wasn't oblivious. I knew exactly what was happening. They believed investing in Ryan would yield substantial returns later. They thought I was already fine and didn't need assistance, so they didn't try. When I was 17, I discovered my passion for working with computers. I wanted to join an internet course to learn software development. It wasn't expensive, just a fraction of what my parents had already spent on Ryan's lessons. But when I mentioned it, my father shook his head and said, "You can learn coding on your own. There's no reason to spend money on it." I was already accustomed to doing things independently, so I remained silent. I spent the entire summer studying free resources online, learning each piece of code and every step by myself. No teachers, no financial support from home, just me. After experiencing such moments many times, I finally understood something painful. My parents never really believed in me. To them, Ryan was the one worth investing money and care in. I was just the child they thought didn't need anything. I never blamed Ryan. It wasn't his fault. But from that day forward, I stopped hoping my parents would ever help me. After completing college, I worked diligently for 2 full years, saving every bit of money I could. By the time I turned 25, I had accumulated enough to start a small tech business. But to expand, I needed additional capital, about $65,000. I contemplated at length before deciding to ask my parents for help. I dislike asking for anything. I didn't want charity. I was prepared to treat it as a loan and even sign a contract to repay everything. Still, I kept thinking, if Ryan had been helped numerous times, why couldn't I ask just once? So I approached my parents for a significant amount of money for the very first time. I remember the day vividly. I sat before them and presented my business proposal in a serious and respectful manner. I had done all my research, found good business partners, and was fully prepared to be accountable for every dollar. But just minutes into my presentation, my father interrupted me and said, "No, it's too risky. It's too unsafe." I stared at him, hoping he'd elaborate, but he didn't. He wasn't interested in my plans and didn't inquire about the effort I had invested. To him, anything I pursued was a poor choice, but when Ryan attempted something, it was a dream that deserved backing. I didn't argue. I gave a quiet, sad smile and nodded. I wasn't surprised, but I still felt disappointed. Even though I didn't get the $65,000, I didn't give up. I used my savings to launch the company anyway. It meant growing more slowly than I had hoped, but I made prudent decisions, managed my finances wisely, and seized every opportunity to improve. In the beginning, it was just a tiny operation with a few people working remotely. I worked relentlessly, sometimes until completely exhausted, but I never surrendered. Nobody believed in me, but I trusted myself, and eventually, I succeeded. By my 29th birthday, my company was thriving. I wasn't just living a comfortable life. I had also purchased 2 houses, one I resided in, one I rented out. Both were in desirable neighborhoods and helped me feel secure about the future. I accomplished all of this without assistance from my parents, without help from anyone. Everything I own, I earned myself. But still, I kept wondering, how much money had my parents spent on Ryan? When Ryan was 23, he opened his own cafe, styled like European establishments. My parents gave him more than $120,000 to help him. He selected a prime location in the city center, furnished it with elegant tables and chairs, and hired staff as if it were a luxury restaurant. But after just 8 months, the cafe closed. Ryan had no understanding of financial management, didn't know how to operate a business, and most importantly, never accepted responsibility for what went wrong. So what did my parents say when the cafe failed? "The economy is really challenging right now. Our sweet boy deserves another chance." Another chance, of course. Then when he turned 25, he attempted fashion. Another $65,000 disappeared to open a small boutique for specialty clothing. This time, the store didn't even survive half a year before shutting down. The reason? He knew nothing about apparel. But that didn't deter him. Ryan always believed he was an undiscovered genius. I thought that would be the last time my parents supported him. But no, they continued believing in him. That's when I finally recognized the truth. My parents appreciated me because I wasn't risky. They refused me because they never truly thought I deserved their trust. And then 1 year ago, I discovered something that shocked me to my core. I was in the old part of town completing a small errand. On my way back, I thought I'd visit my parents. I didn't inform them I was coming. I figured I'd just stop by briefly to say hello. But as soon as I pulled up to the house, something caught my attention. A brand new BMW parked in the driveway. I stared at it. My parents were never ones to spend extravagantly, so where did this vehicle come from? The front door opened, and my mother emerged with a huge smile. She happily exclaimed, "Ryan just got a new car. Isn't it amazing?" I stood motionless, completely stunned. A BMW? With what money? Ryan had failed repeatedly. There was no way he could afford something so expensive. When I entered the house, I tried to maintain composure, but then I noticed a stack of bank documents on the table. I picked them up and started reading. My chest tightened. It was a mortgage agreement, a loan for $625,000. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The loan covered 80% of the house's value. My parents had put their home at risk, but for what? Why borrow so much? I clutched the papers tightly, trying to keep my voice steady. "You used the house to get a loan?" I asked quietly. My father frowned. My mother avoided eye contact. "We only took out a small loan to help Ryan," she said softly, as if it were nothing unusual. I gave a dry laugh. A small loan. I glanced at the figure again. $625,000. That's 80% of their home's value. That's small? What about the money Grandpa left? I asked. My mother paused, then exhaled slowly. That money, it's already gone, she said. Gone, I repeated, pronouncing each letter as if it hurt. I looked again at the BMW outside. I already knew the answer. You spent it on Ryan's car, didn't you? They remained silent. My mother bit her lip. My father gave me a cold stare, as if I'd said something inappropriate. He needed that car, my father said sharply. In business, perception matters. Who would take you seriously if you arrive in an ordinary car? I smiled, not because anything was amusing, but because the situation was so painfully absurd. You depleted all the savings, spent the inheritance, bought him a car, and now you've mortgaged your home to get a loan so he can have even more money for another scheme. Do you even realize how dangerous that is? If Ryan fails again, you'll have nowhere left to live. Their expressions changed immediately. My mother looked at me angrily, and my father's voice became harsh and cold. You envy your brother, don't you? He said. You want him to fail just so you can feel superior to him. I stood motionless. Envy, I repeated, unable to believe what I was hearing. You seriously think I envy someone who has squandered this family's money repeatedly and has never once accepted any responsibility? They couldn't perceive the reality. I took a deep breath and tried to remain calm. But then I remembered something and turned to my father. When I was 25, I asked you for a $65,000 loan to start my company. Do you remember? I asked. You instantly refused, calling it too risky. And now you're comfortable putting the house on the line for Ryan? Has he ever succeeded even once? I'm really disappointed in both of you. My father slammed his drinking glass onto the table with a loud thud. That happened years ago, and you're doing fine now, he said firmly. But Ryan needs support. Stop bringing up the past to attack this household. Then he rose quickly and pointed toward the entrance. Leave if all you're going to do is complain. Then don't come back. I looked at them for a few seconds, then placed the loan documents on the table, nodded, and walked out. While driving home, I called Ryan. Even though I was angry with our parents, I still wanted to try to prevent him from making another massive mistake. Ryan, please listen. You're heading down the wrong path, I said. Mom and Dad have risked everything for you. If you fail again, they're going to lose everything. Don't you see that? But instead of heeding my advice, Ryan laughed mockingly. You always do this, Nathan. You're just jealous. You're afraid I'll become more successful than you, and now you're trying to stop me. I went silent. You really believe that? I asked calmly. What else could it be? He replied scornfully. You already have everything. A company, houses, money, and now that I finally have an opportunity, you can't stand it. You're just being selfish. I didn't speak for a moment, then I shook my head. If that's what you believe, then there's nothing left to say. I ended the call. This time, I truly gave up. A week passed without contact. Then unexpectedly, my parents called and invited me over for dinner. I didn't anticipate that, especially not so soon after the argument. But regardless of what had transpired, they were still my family, so I agreed to visit. When I arrived, I saw Ryan was already there. The atmosphere was different, less tense than before. My parents looked at me, and my father spoke first. Nathan, we're sorry we said some things that weren't right last time. My mother nodded, her voice quieter than usual. Ryan also wants to apologize. I looked at Ryan. He gave a slight nod and rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, I was kind of angry that day. I shouldn't have said what I said. I was genuinely shocked. My parents had never apologized to me before, and Ryan had never admitted being wrong. For a moment, I thought perhaps they had finally understood. But less than a minute later, I realized what this dinner was actually for. My father cleared his throat, then began speaking slowly. Nathan, you've got two properties, one where you live and another you rent out, right? Immediately, I sensed something was wrong. Why are you bringing this up? I asked, my voice growing colder. My mother intervened, her voice calm as if she were saying something perfectly normal. Ryan is entering the real estate field. He needs to appear credible. A nice place to live would enhance his image. If you could let him have one of your houses, it would greatly benefit his future. I sat in disbelief. So that was it. The apology had merely been a setup for this outrageous request. Without hesitation, I looked at them directly and replied, no. My mother blinked as if she couldn't believe what I had just said. What do you mean, Nathan? She asked, still gentle, but sounding more uneasy now. I mean, I'm not giving Ryan my property. I'm not foolish. The entire mood shifted instantly. My father put his utensils down with a loud noise, his stare hardening. Nathan, you have 2 places to live. Ryan only needs 1 break. He's your brother. I let out a bitter laugh. So what now? You expect me to surrender my home just so he can appear successful? How many times have you thrown money at him even though he's never once accomplished anything? My father's tone grew more stern. He hasn't failed. He just hasn't found the right opportunity yet. And you already have everything. Can't you support him just this once? I laughed again, but this time it sounded dry and hollow. Have everything? You never gave me anything at all. Even when I asked for $65,000 to build my company, you immediately refused. And now you think I should give Ryan an entire house? I'm not out of my mind. My mother's hand began trembling. My father slammed his fist on the table, causing the water in the glasses to ripple. So you're just selfish like everyone else? You envy your own brother? You're afraid he might become more successful than you, isn't that it? I stood up quickly, my eyes filled with disappointment. No, I'm just not stupid. Silence filled the room. I turned toward Ryan. He still hadn't spoken. His eyes were fixed on the floor. I knew deep down that if I had agreed to give him that house, he would have accepted it immediately. He wouldn't have thought twice. He had no problem taking what wasn't his. I shook my head, feeling more sickened than angry. You can continue putting your faith in him if you want. I don't. Without another word, I walked out of the home I once called my own. Behind me, I heard my father's voice shout furiously, "If you leave now, don't ever come back." I didn't stop. This time, I left them behind for good. Just as I had predicted, a few months later, Ryan failed again. I didn't hear it from my parents. Ryan didn't tell me either. I found out through an acquaintance who worked in real estate. Nathan, did you hear Ryan's business collapsed? I paused, gripping my phone tightly. What went wrong? I asked, although I already knew the answer. He made a poor investment decision. He bought when prices were high and sold when they dropped. Lost everything. That money from the mortgage your parents took? Gone. I closed my eyes and exhaled. I wasn't shocked. It was inevitable sooner or later. But there was more. What about the BMW? I asked, though I already had a bad feeling. He sold it 2 months ago, my friend said. He needed funds to keep the business afloat, but it didn't help for long. I gave a flat, joyless laugh. My parents had risked everything on Ryan. They were convinced he was destined for success. But now, no money, no business, no car, soon no roof over their heads. What did I feel then? Not pride, not satisfaction, just emptiness inside. I had warned them. I had tried to make them see reason, but they ignored me. And I already knew what would happen next. They would reach out to me. Just as I anticipated, a few hours after learning about Ryan's business failure, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. The first call came from my mother. I didn't answer. Then another, then another. Then dozens of messages flooded in nonstop. Nathan, please answer. We need you. Please don't abandon us. I saw every message but didn't respond. I knew exactly what they were asking for. The moment they mortgaged their house, I knew this would happen. They weren't messaging to apologize. They wanted financial assistance. The next morning, I stepped outside to go to work. I stopped suddenly, standing in front of my door were my parents and Ryan. They looked worse than ever before. Ryan had lost his usual arrogance. His face appeared gaunt and tired. No fancy attire, no proud business demeanor. He looked like someone who had lost everything. My mother looked as if she had been crying for hours. My father, once strong and proud, appeared much older, as if the stress had aged him rapidly. They had nothing left. My father cleared his throat and spoke, his voice rough and weak. Nathan, we were wrong. I crossed my arms and leaned against the doorframe, my gaze cold. Now you understand? They didn't argue. No yelling, no calling me selfish or jealous, because now they needed me. My mother began speaking, her voice shaky. Son, we're out of options. Please help us. I sighed and interrupted her. I don't have any cash. They froze, but my father quickly responded, as if he had rehearsed it. You could sell your company or one of your homes. If we can cover what we owe and keep the old house, we'll be able to start over. I looked at him for a moment, then laughed, not because it was amusing, but because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They genuinely thought I'd sell the company I built to save them. These same people had refused to lend me $65,000 when I wanted to pursue my dream. Now they were asking me to sacrifice everything I'd created for them. They had excluded me, they had rejected me, and now they wanted me to lose everything for them. I had nothing left to give. I stood tall, stepped to the doorway, and opened it wide, then pointed outside. "Leave my home." No one moved. Ryan opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. "I told you, I'm not a fool." I had nothing more to say. 1 month later, their old house was foreclosed by the bank. They had to pack up and leave. With no home remaining, they were now homeless. I wasn't surprised. I saw this coming the day they signed that loan. Initially, they stayed with acquaintances, but no one could accommodate them long term. Later, they moved into cheap, seedy motel rooms, dark, damp, and cramped. Once their money ran out, they ended up in shelters, waiting in line for food. These were the same parents who once had a nice home and sufficient savings to live comfortably. Now they were among those who had lost everything. And Ryan, the man who once called himself a businessman, who once drove a BMW, was now destitute. He searched for employment, but nobody wanted to hire someone with a history of repeated failures. Even though I told myself I didn't care anymore, I still observed them discreetly from a distance. I didn't contact them, but I still knew how they were surviving. And despite trying to feel nothing, I couldn't completely turn away. For 3 months, I let them experience what it meant to lose everything. I wanted them to feel the consequences of their choices. But deep inside, my sense of being their son prevented me from watching indefinitely. No matter how unfairly they treated me, no matter how they excluded me, they were still my parents. About a month ago, I made my decision. I would visit them. They looked truly defeated. My father, who once walked with pride, lowered his head when I entered. My mother appeared exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes from sleepless nights, and her hair was grayer than I remembered. Ryan sat off to the side. He no longer exuded confidence. He wasn't the man who used to speak proudly about grandiose dreams and ambitious plans. No one spoke for a while. Finally, I broke the silence. "I will rent a small apartment for you. It will be sufficient to live near the city, but only for 1 year." My mother raised her head, her face showing a glimmer of hope. But I wasn't finished. During that year, Ryan must find employment. And after those 12 months, you're on your own. I won't provide further assistance. My father didn't protest. My mother didn't plead. They both realized they had no right to ask for anything more. Ryan started to speak, perhaps to complain, perhaps to make a request, but for the first time, my father raised his hand to stop him. He looked at me for a while, then gave a slow nod. That was the first time I saw him acknowledge that he had made mistakes. You're probably wondering why I only offered help for 1 year. Here's why. Ryan still lives with them, and I won't allow him to continue depending on me for years. He's become accustomed to others cleaning up his messes, but this time, if he wants a genuine life, he must earn it himself. If my parents can support themselves after a year, that would be positive. If they can't, I'll make Ryan leave. After that, I'll only pay rent to ensure my parents don't end up homeless, but Ryan will no longer be my responsibility. That's my final decision. Now I want to ask you, if you were in my position, what would you have done? Would you still provide help, or would you let them face the consequences of their actions? Write your thoughts in the comments, and please subscribe so you won't miss the next part of the story. Thanks for being here.